I will say I continue to be surprised for years now on the ability of the government to manipulate the market and find creative ways to make sure that things go up and to, like I said, pull this lever a little forward and pull this one a little back to just keep the party going nonstop. I mean, where's the recession we were promised for the last 2 or 3 years, right?
GM, good morning. Welcome to the Milk Road Show, the daily crypto show where being patient is a strategy and also a daily emotional battle. I'm your host, Jay Hamilton. It's Monday, November the 3rd. Crypto markets, yikes, just continue to struggle, uncorrelated from the rest of risk assets here. What is happening? Why are we not up higher? What is going on with Bitcoin? What's going on with altcoins? I know these are the questions on all of your mind. Have we topped? Is the 4-year cycle still a thing? These are all the questions we're going to talk about today. Also, Microsoft signed a $10 billion deal this morning with a Bitcoin mining company. Amazon signed a $5 billion deal with another Bitcoin mining company. What's going on with Bitcoin mining companies? And is there an opportunity here for you as an investor to get in? We're going to dive into this and so much more. Today, we're joined by the one and only Scott Melker. The Wolf of All Streets is back. He's in the studio. Before we get him on, if you guys are making swaps, I know that, actually, I should say last month, October, was the highest month ever for DEX volume ever in history. You might say, okay, that's great. That means a lot of stuff is happening. DEXs are working. Well, if you are making swaps, the reason I think it happened was because of all the liquidations. But if you're making swaps, you should check out melkrow.swap at swap.melkrow.com. It's what I use to make my swaps. Why? Quite simple. It's got some of the lowest fees in the space. Today's episode is brought to you by Bridge. Power your business with instant stablecoin payments, no friction, no banks, just global finance made simple. It's also brought to you by the Gemini Credit Card. Turn your everyday spending into Bitcoin, stack sats without even thinking about it. And finally, by Figure Markets, earn solid returns on your cash because sitting idle isn't a strategy. With that, let's hear from Scott. Scott, welcome back to the Milk Road Show. Great to have you again.
Thanks, man. Looking forward to it.
Always looking forward to having you, especially after a spooky Halloween weekend. The markets are spooked right now. Let's just start. Bitcoin, what 106, I think it's at right now as of this, 107 around. What's your thoughts on this market right now? Everyone's worried, feeling like, have we topped? A lot of talk from both sides, but the macro setups continues to look strong. How are you framing it?
I think it's always interesting to see how much panic there can be when nothing is happening. And there's two types of capitulation in markets, and we talk about this every time it happens, but people seem to forget. There's when price goes down and you can't suffer the pain anymore and you finally sell, which is usually the bottom and that huge wick and everything bounces, right? The other one is time-based capitulation, right? Price just kind of doesn't do anything for long enough that you give up and look to greener pastures, try to find something else that will outperform the thing that you're in, or you simply give up. And I think we're in one of those time-based capitulation phases. That said, we have quite a bit of actual data and metrics as to why price is being suppressed. And I don't say that in a manipulated way. I don't know if you saw this, but I believe on-chain showed 400,000 Bitcoins sold in October by long-term holders, which is just an astounding distribution of people who were the buying floor before now becoming the selling ceiling. So these are the people that for 15 years held Bitcoin from the very beginning, didn't sell when it went to 20, didn't sell when it went to 69, rode every bear market. And eventually, either because they've given up some belief because of the institutions and governments coming in, that's one narrative, is that screw this, I bought Bitcoin because I hated these people. Now we're all cheering for JP Morgan and BlackRock. So that's one side. But I think more than anything, it's just you're 15 years older, maybe you have kids, and you have billions and billions and billions of dollars in Bitcoin. You're going to eventually sell some of that to live a life of luxury and support your kids and make sure that your estate planning is in order. But 400,000 Bitcoin were sold in 1 month, which was October, by the way, down 3%. Tragic. And price is still above 100 grand for like most of the year. So, I tend to take the glass half full approach when we can see that much selling, that the price is still being buoyed and still hanging out here, that things just aren't that bad. I think most crypto people are just more exposed to altcoins than Bitcoin, and that's just down only.
Mhm. It sort of reminds me of, remember last summer, like last August, when Bitcoin also was range bound, and we were dealing with all of these sellers. The Mt. Gox sell, the German government was selling, right? Like there was all these major sellers, sort of a similar set of different sellers this time. Can that has to have an end, though?
Yeah,
right?
well, it wears out, and the floor that we're seeing starts to push up. I mean, tale as old as time. So I have no real major concerns about Bitcoin here. The only concern I would have about Bitcoin is if we see some major black swan in macro and things just all go bad together. But we all know that the government has deemed recessions and dips illegal and will pull any lever and push any button to make sure that doesn't happen. I mean, Trump was literally on 60 Minutes yesterday saying that his number one priority is to be number one in crypto. I mean, how, listen, you can think whatever you want about the president, but when he talks about wanting to see markets go up and that he will do anything to have that happen, you can believe him there, regardless of your thoughts on him or politics.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you could take that a step further to, he's also well aware, and all American politicians are well aware of the AI race that is happening right now between America and China and the rest of the world. But the stakes for winning the AI race are incredibly high, right? Like, and everything from a robotic standpoint, China's winning right now.
China's winning from almost every standpoint, I think, in that regard. Certainly, we might be winning on chips, and I'm not the biggest AI expert out there, but China is certainly winning on infrastructure and power and energy, which is what we're going to need to entirely power this future of AI. And so the United States is scrambling to have enough power to even do the things we're doing now. And China is living in, 2035 with enough power for anything that they scale to do. So I think that's a big difference. That's an interesting crossover between crypto and AI, actually, because it's really powered this massive pump in Bitcoin miners, because they're effectively just data centers that can turn off the Bitcoin switch and turn on the AI switch anytime they want. So, we saw a deal announced between IREN, I think, at Microsoft today, Cypher and AWS today. Then you saw a deal between Amazon, which is not crypto related, between Amazon and OpenAI today. But I mean, and I think there was another Microsoft deal that I kind of saw in passing right before we came on. But this is like endless multi-billion-dollar partnership deals that are seemingly incestual in this big circle of trust between all these miners, infrastructure players, tech companies, and anything AI adjacent. So clearly that's where the big race is. Maybe that's taken some of the mind share from crypto and from our price action. But honestly, I just think, there's been a ton of money coming into crypto. It's coming in largely through public markets and not through altcoins this time. And I think that the fact that Bitcoin is still chilling here at 106, 107 is quite encouraging, considering how much selling there's been.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, I want to take this in two different ways. First, I think on the macro side, you can't deny that it is very clear that they are going to run the economy hot for a while here, right? Every signal possible is alarm bells are going off that is where we're headed. More rate cuts likely coming, whether they come under Powell or whether they come with Trump's puppet, whoever comes next. I think more rate cuts coming. The QT just ended. QE could start in 2026. We'll see. But certainly there is a necessary belief within the US government that they need to win AI. And the best way to do that is to increase spending and to invest, right? So that feels like, on the macro side, I just see that as a setup for 2026 where risk assets likely go up. Now, I don't mean, we can talk about which risk assets in a second. Would you agree with that take?
Yeah, it makes sense. So we're going to just see a ton of liquidity, and liquidity drives markets. I mean, the minute that they gave up on the austerity talk and said, we're going to grow our way out of this as we add trillions to the debt, it's pretty clear exactly what they plan to do. You can handicap your bets on whether it will work or not, and that's obviously up to you. But as I said, I don't think Trump wants a depression before midterms. So I think that we have a very good setup for the next, 10 to 11 months. Your point about what is or is not a risk asset is definitely worth discussing. I think it's very interesting that gold continues to kind of climb towards highs or consolidate under them now. S&P continuing to make highs, tech continuing to make highs in this very long consolidation period where Bitcoin languishes. And the holy grail for investors is to have something that is not correlated, even if that thing goes down when all the other stuff goes up. So I think that Bitcoin actually, even though it hasn't gone up like everything else, it's a great case for having it in your investment portfolio and showing that it's uncorrelated, which I think we've been screaming about for a very, very long time. But I do think that we still have the ingredients for an everything bull run. And if you listen to Paul Tudor Jones, for example, talking about the debasement trade, which that term that Bitcoiners have been screaming about since 2008 is finally really catching mainstream, like attention, because JP Morgan talked about it, Ken Griffin of Citadel talked about it, Paul Tudor Jones talking about it, like the biggest names across the board. They all had a different approach to how you should invest, to hedge against this debasement trade. Every single one of them had Bitcoin in them. Almost all of them had gold in there. Some had silver, but Paul Tudor Jones included NASDAQ because he thinks that, all of that value will just pour into tech stocks. That's where investors are used to throwing their money. The Mag 7 is the stock market at this point. So there's an interesting argument to be made for sort of this everything rally. If you're saying gold, Bitcoin, and NASDAQ, you're basically saying everything continues to go up in this crack up boom.
Yeah, it certainly feels like to you and I and a lot of our listeners, the debasement trade is nothing new, but it feels like to the rest of the world it is new, and we're still very early. Like, I got to imagine that everybody that trades through a broker and maybe doesn't, manage their own trading is talking to their broker right now, coming into year end, looking at their portfolio, doing their review, and I'll bet one of the biggest talking points for these brokers is the debasement trade and how important it is to get you in on that. And that has a huge impact on it. It has a huge impact. Hit yet?
I think it has a huge impact. And at the same time, you have, I think, $7.5 trillion sitting in money market funds, earning a yield that every rational person knows is going to drop. Right? Like, that rates are coming down, that even if Powell is somewhat resistant as rates come down, that, as you said, once we get the Trump puppet in May, it's going to come down massively. All of that money is going to have to find a home that's not in bonds. Right. And so 7.5 trillion will be coming off the sidelines, regardless even of how much liquidity the Fed or the central banks inject. It just really is a very rational setup for more liquidity coming into markets. And the people who are sitting in the $7.5 trillion of money markets are not like poor people struggling check to check, right? I mean, these are investors who move their money actively between markets to say, listen, I don't want to be in stocks right now, so I'm going to go earn this yield, or the yield is high enough that it justifies not taking the risk on stocks. When that yield comes down and no longer justifies holding government debt, people are going to have to find somewhere for their money. Where's it going to go? Into assets. That doesn't, listen, there could be more sellers than buyers even in that situation, but the setup is there for sure. And yes, I think that debasement trade is a growing conversation probably with people and their investment advisors, and they're going to be starting to look to rebalance those money markets.
Stablecoins are the biggest use case in crypto right now, but let's be real, using them on chain is still way too complex. That's exactly the problem Bridge is solving. Recently acquired by Stripe, yep, that's Stripe, Bridge helps businesses send, store, accept, and launch stablecoins instantly. Explore the future of global financial infrastructure at milkroad.com/bridge. Did you know you can earn Bitcoin without ever buying it? That's where the Gemini Credit Card comes in. Here's how it works. Earn up to 4% back in Bitcoin on gas, transit, and rideshare, 3% on dining, 2% on groceries, and 1% on everything else. Use it just like any other credit card. And you're building a crypto portfolio at the same time. The best part, the Gemini Credit Card has no annual fee and works anywhere MasterCard is accepted. When you're approved and spend $3,000 in the first 90 days, you'll get a $200 Bitcoin bonus. Spend as usual, earn Bitcoin instead at milkroad.com/Gemini. When you look at the market right now, let's take a step back. I want to talk about what's a risk asset and altcoins in a second, but
those are risk assets. Conversations over.
Those are the riskiest of assets. When you look at the market right now, let's take it from two perspectives. I'd love to know like what confuses you about this market, because I think to a lot of people, there's a lot of confusion right now versus where you have certainty or where you have conviction in the market.
I'm buying the hell out of Bitcoin dips.
Mhm.
Like, I love this. I want lower. I have cash on the sidelines. When I earn money, I want to buy Bitcoin with it. So I'd much rather do that at 100 than 130. So like nothing that's happened with Bitcoin price action has shaken my conviction there that that's going to be a good asset to hold over the long term. Again, if it goes to 80, I'm buying. If it goes to 75, I'm buying. So I'm not talking about immediate price appreciation from here. Nothing would surprise me in the short term, but long term, I expect it to be much, much, much higher. So I'm enjoying that price action and doesn't concern me. And I have high conviction there. I think what confuses me, if that was the question, is I won't say I'm confused. I will say I continue to be surprised for years now on the ability of the government to manipulate the market and find creative ways to make sure that things go up and to, like I said, pull this lever a little forward and pull this one a little back to just keep the party going nonstop. I mean, where's the recession we were promised for the last 2 or 3 years, right? How wrong were people on their predictions about when the Fed would pivot before it became so obvious? Literally years where we saw next meeting 85% and they didn't cut, right? And so I just think that we're at this extreme bipolarity in opinion. It's nobody's like it'll chop sideways. It's either on very extremes. It's almost like politics, right? You have one side that's so bullish it'll never go down. Even if we get the debasement trade, everything goes up. And even if things go bad, everything goes up, because where else is your money going to go? And the other side is literally at like the fourth turning Great Depression. Then nobody's like, it'll just kind of go up or down 5% the next year or two, right? It's like doom on one side and complete euphoria on the other. Something I found really interesting last week, if you want to show the level of confusion, not necessarily to me, but I think to the market in general, was that the fear and greed index for the S&P dipped into fear on a day when the S&P made a new all-time high.
Really?
So yes. So usually, obviously, at all-time highs, you're experiencing greed and it's ticking up. I can't remember in tracking that metric, which is not something I look at every day, where the fear was growing as the market was rising. Right, a very, very strange thing. Obviously, crypto is in extreme fear at this point. Bitcoin may be fear, but if you look at the whole crypto market, tipping towards extreme fear. And that makes sense when altcoins are making new all-time lows, right? But very, very, very confusing for the market to be absolutely ripping and people to be fearful writ large. Very strange.
And where do you think that comes from?
Because none of it makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like you can't, there's no way that you can kind of like consume all of the data that exists and then, the data, the sentiment, the research, and make sense of it, because so much of it is so conflicting. Like gold having a historic rally should coincide with stocks dropping. Right? You shouldn't have those two things both rallying together. And the dollar was down, but it's not like dying.
It's not down that much.
Right. And
it's actually kind of up right now. It's creeping up right now.
Yeah, and it's had kind of a nice bump. So I just think that the old memes of the past, the inverse correlation of markets to dollar strength and gold ripping from under 2,000 basically to over 4,000 with barely a break when you consider the size of something like gold. I mean, you're talking about like 12 to 25 trillion in market cap. There's, for anyone who, by the way, says, that like Bitcoin can't 10x because it's too big already at 2 trillion. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gold's like, hold my beer and my bottle of tequila, because it can happen, right? And so I think that there's just no way it's very difficult to make an educated guess on where markets are going next. And I think that naturally breeds fear, because, markets hate uncertainty, but if you have a bunch of uncertain participants, I think everybody just kind of got their finger on the trigger in both directions. Like they don't know which one they want to pull, like the buy or sell at any given time. Like, do you feel confident buying a bunch of stocks right now? Like, is that
like, no, right?
But did you a year ago? Probably not still. Right?
No,
So,
exactly.
Yeah,
because a year ago,
weird.
It also didn't make sense, right? And then as we go into, as we look to likely end this year with another year of the S&P up 20+%, like that's not possible, right? Would be but then again, as you said earlier, apparently recessions, the other side also isn't possible anymore,
Yeah, they're
right?
legal.
So you can make sense of it not making sense in a way, because you can see the trap that every government is in right now, right? And I think that I really make a big connection to AI and the AI race, right? Governments have no choice but to grow their way out of it, grow their way out of the debt, keep spending, increase spending. There is no other choice. Austerity won't work. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say austerity won't work. It probably could work if somebody wanted to go that path, but nobody does. And so they're stuck. And then at the same time, you have this technology that's come around in AI that's never been here before. And if you don't become a part of the future of AI as a country, then you're gonna drop down the pecking order, and no country wants to take that risk right now. Yeah. So it's just, but then it all comes back to it all comes back to really the altcoin question, because I agree with your. Let's talk about altcoins for a second, because I agree with your take.
I'm literally looking. By the way, Bitcoin broke 100 like November 24.
November 24.
$6,000 over 100 right now. Yeah. So we're within 6% of the price 50 weeks ago, not 52 weeks ago. So not quite a year. And it went to 74 in between there, and then it's kind of held 100 now for the bulk of the year. But Bitcoin hasn't really gone up in a year. I mean, there was a point I'm looking December, like right around Christmas, where it was 109. Remember, it topped at 109. That's above the current price at Christmas last year, ish. Yeah, it's been a pretty good, and gold has, done what gold has done. The S&P is up massively. Everything's up, and Bitcoin really isn't. And altcoins are down, mostly. I haven't looked at Ethereum on the weekly, I don't know where down. Ethereum was exactly a year ago, but I think it's even down from that. Well, no, I guess Ethereum coming into last year was down in the 20 somethings, but I mean, by March, Ethereum had hit, 41, and we're down from there, obviously. So it just a little delayed, but yeah, I mean, it's just not good. So what is that? What's your take on altcoins then? Let me ask you directly. Are you in altcoins? Are you? Oh, dude, I have probably like 100 plus altcoins from previous cycles that are I could literally just go get my broom and duster and clean them off the floor. Literally just have turned to ash. Yeah, because I was a deep believer in all the the ICOs and I invested in everything. I was like, we're going to change the world, man. Yeah. Didn't understand tokenomics clearly at that time, because now I don't understand how any of them have any value. And I'm not a Bitcoin maxi. I hold still, I'm still dollar cost averaging into ETH and Solana as well, by the way. So it's not like I'm not a believer in altcoins, but I very rarely make a speculative investment in anything new, and I don't expect to be able to throw a dart and have my thing go up 10x and then pull the dart out and throw another dart and wait, those alt seasons of the past, because I just don't see where the money would come from when it's sloshing around in the public markets. So where is the opportunity? I mean, we talked about it a bit earlier with Bitcoin mining companies and I bought IREN I bought IREN between $2 and $4. It hit 70 something today. That's better than most alt seasons. Mike Alfred was on my show screaming about IREN since late 23, I think, literally. But yeah, I was buying it between $2 and $4, and even in early 24, mid 24, probably a year and a half ago, right? And so I mean, it's now up 30 something X from that price. Okay, so explain to the audience for a second. Let's just backtrack. What is IREN, and why is it up so much? IREN's a Bitcoin miner, and Mike Alfred, a friend of mine who's on the board, would continually come on my show and say people don't understand the opportunity that Bitcoin miners are not only just beta to Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes up, miners should go up, which didn't really happen as much as time, but they're also going to become AI companies and AI infrastructure, all the things we talked about, and that's just completely been proven. But, if you're big money and you want exposure to Bitcoin with higher beta, do you go buy coin number 74 on CoinMarketCap, or do you buy a Bitcoin miner, or maybe a Circle, or the Bullish IPO, or the eToro IPO? why? I love the guys at Bullish, Tom, like all of them, but like nobody had heard of Bullish, right? Am I wrong? Like that's EOS money,
You're
like
right.
from the great, like the
biggest
biggest
EOS.
ICO bust of all
CEOs
time,
guys.
right? So like they did it twice. Congratulations, they pulled off the biggest ICO, like 6 billion or something. Still own all that Bitcoin, like hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, and then created Bullish
Bitcoin that they have. Yeah,
over 100, I think actually.
You think it's 100? Holy!
I think it's over 100. I think I could be wrong, but I think it's over 100. And then they launched Bullish, an exchange that kind of like no retail people ever really heard of, and they say a bunch of institutions, and that had this massive ICO. So there was clearly just this hunger for an altcoin-like environment in public markets. I'm not saying Bullish stock is an altcoin, but I'm saying that the altcoin mentality of Bitcoin gets boring, let's try to beat Bitcoin. That's what drove altcoins in the past, that speculation. It's just found a much bigger pool to play in with much more capital. And those people are going to buy IPOs and treasury stocks and MicroStrategy and Bitminer. I mean, Tom Lee owns like, 3% of the Bitcoin supply or whatever it is at this point in a matter of months. Like you buy, these are the places that the big money is playing on altcoins. And so some of that will accrue to the altcoins that have it underlying, like regardless of your thoughts about some of them, if they do have a passionate community and launch an ETF, people are going to buy the hell out of those and those coins will probably go up, right? So I just think I struggle to find the great narrative for altcoins. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get alt seasons, that we get appreciation on key altcoins that have great narratives, maybe utility. Maybe we even start to see a kind of a rising tide lifts all ships. And some of them, they double or something. Let's say all altcoins double across the board. They're still down 97%, right? If you're down 99%, you got to go up 100x to get back to where people wanted. So even if they double, is that alt season? I don't know. Maybe gives you a chance to exit. But let's think about the scenario that gets us there. Okay, so like when did altcoins used to go crazy? When Bitcoin consolidated after making a high, right? So we got Bitcoin go up to 125,000, hold above 100, should be literally like the breeding ground for alt season. We got this crazy move in Bitcoin. It's been sideways. Altcoins should have absolutely gone nuts this entire time, and they haven't, right? So from 107,000 or 106, we're at 107,000 right now. Like if Bitcoin goes down, as it did today from like 111 to 107, a $4,000 move, not big. What happened to altcoins? They went down 3 times as much or 2 times as much, whatever it is, right? Depending on the altcoin. So we know with history and even today that when Bitcoin drops, altcoins go down more. What happens when Bitcoin rises fast and breaks out of this range?
The opposite.
Altcoins go down versus Bitcoin, right? So sideways isn't working for altcoins. We know that down is bad for altcoins. And we know that historically, if Bitcoin catches a bid to get to that all-time high and above where maybe you would get an alt season at this point, it's going to wreck your altcoins. So maybe you just need to be in Bitcoin for now if you're trading until we make an all-time high and sustain above it. And then maybe altcoins catch a bid. But they're going to get probably wrecked on the way there. So maybe even when they catch a bid, they get back to where they are now. I have no idea. Right. But they're just like anything can happen. I could be totally wrong. That's just like rationally, if you're looking at history and what's happening now, and you try to handicap the odds of an environment where you have an alt season, that environment probably has more wreckage to get there.
Why do people invest in real estate? Because it spits off cash flow. But I'm not here to manage rental properties. That's why I'm looking at Figure Markets. Their new democratized prime product backs your money with real cash flowing assets and returns up to 9% APY. It's the first real world asset borrow lend pool built for everyone, not just institutions. Ready to lend like a bank and get more than the 5% Aave is offering you? Download the Figure Markets app today and get 9% on your idle funds. Go to milkroad.com/Figure Markets. Like I just pulled up the Russell 2500 because it's been creeping up.
Yeah.
And that sort of says to me,
those
like,
are equity altcoins, dude. That's
alt season, right?
Altcoins.
Like that's the stock market altcoin. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like I think part of this is that it's a different, it's an institutional cycle, right? For crypto, at least. There's not a lot of retail here on the crypto side. And when we have an institutional cycle, they buy institutional vehicles, and that's why they're on public markets. And so the alt season has happened. I mean, you said this on the show. I think you came on the show like 6 months ago and you said this, that like alt season will happen. It'll be in public equities. And what happened? Exactly that, as you just said, right?
Yeah, dude.
All the IPOs did well.
One of the 1 in 10 times I've been right publicly on a live stream. Nailed it.
So it does, like, as we go into 2026. Okay, give me that. What's your view on 2026?
I think they will generally grind up. I think it's midterm season. I think we'll unlock liquidity for all the reasons that we just discussed. And I think generally markets will go up. I just don't think like altcoins wildly outperform Bitcoin across the board. That's what I'm saying about alt season. Alt season, first of all, like I was there for 2016, 2017, all the cycles since. My memory of it is probably like other people's. You feel like alt season was this like 6-month period of glory where anything you would ever, it's like looking back at your horrid, like psychotic ex-girlfriend a few years later and being like, man, she was great. I miss her, you know, and like glorifying all the few good things, but ignoring the 99% of bad things. Alt seasons are like 2 weeks or a month, or if you're really lucky, 5 or 6 weeks. And then you got to get back into Bitcoin and it gets wrecked. And then you have another alt season for 2 weeks, but it's happening below where you are if you held through that entire sort of Bitcoin phase. So like even the greatest alt seasons are short-lived, and the biggest ones have come at the end of the bull market. So like in, you know, whenever Bitcoin topped in 21, you know, Ethereum, that was like November, December. I think it was November. Like I think generally cycles end between now and November 20th ish, right?
Yep.
But we chopped around, and then I remember it was like December 4th or something. I was at Art Basel, and Bitcoin like broke below 52 and dropped to 42 really fast and bounced back. I was at a party that Diplo was DJing with all the FTX guys and Coinbase guys and crypto degens at Art Basel. Nobody's phone worked. And they were all screaming that they were going to get liquidated while trying to update the price, and nobody could get their phones in to work on their things. And we just heard Bitcoin dropping, like an echo around the whole thing. And everybody thought it had only gone from like 52 to 49, but it went to 42 in between in like 1 hour. I'll never forget that day. And my wife looked at me and said, "Do we need to do something?" And I looked at her drunkenly and said, "Diamond hands." It was the worst response. And so, you know, but
she's like, "You're going to buy me a new rock? Great. Thanks, Scott."
Diamond hands. Embarrassing. So, you know, I was like with the guys from Star Atlas, and that was probably the peak of their token and all this stuff. I'll never forget, like Mike. And so I remember that. And then ETH went to an all-time high in January. Like, even though Bitcoin broke 52 to 42 and then kind of bounced and chopped around, altcoins went nuts for like a month or a month and a half. And then that was the top of the bull market before years of doom and gloom, right? Then we went into 22 and we got FTX, Voyager, Celsius, just horrid, right? And so even if you're cheering for alt season, you might be, if you believe in cycles, you might be cheering for the end of it.
It's 100%. That's what you're cheering for, the euphoric blow off the top.
I'm just saying, like, you know,
and
like,
timing
I
that
love
is
a
tough,
euphoric blow
right?
off top, but like that euphoric blow off top is probably going to come with my positions going up 2 or 3x and being down 85% from if I had just sold them before this cycle. Great.
Yeah, and most people won't take profit at the right time.
No, because once it's up 3x, it's going up 30x. We all know that. It's science.
Oh man, it is. So even this episode is confusing, you know, like everything we're talking about.
And anybody, honestly, I really think anybody who speaks with any certainty in the market right now is either selling you something or self-deluded.
Yeah,
you just like and self-deluded is a very common thing in markets. So like, you know, like, and you can be euphoric or you can be convincing yourself of a narrative. But I think if you zoom out and look at it objectively, it's very confusing for anyone, even high conviction. It's very confusing.
So good luck out there, everybody.
Buy token 943 on CoinMarketCap, because that's going to be the one, guys. It's going to be your lottery ticket to fame and fortune.
Should we all buy Zcash? Isn't Zcash going to be 10%?
That's being pumped by a bunch of. Jeez. I mean, that I don't.
Everyone's pumping. Why is everyone like big kale?
I don't know much, but I know that when I look at that shit, it is not a coincidence.
Right. That's I feel the same way, but I also get like with this
I haven't
one,
paid that much attention to it. I just see the price go up, and then like I see, tweets all over the place and the ecosystem and stuff. And it just reeks of like, I'm not saying even as a negative massively. It just feels like a whole bunch of people got together and were like, which thing can we really surprise people with and catch you're like, oh, well, privacy is a really good narrative right now. Let's grab onto one of those and maybe they're building legitimate things on it. And that's why it's going up. I'm just saying that clearly there was a lot of people that decided to focus on that at one time. I'm not saying in a nefarious way, they were like, we're going to pump it 10x and then dump it on everyone. I have no idea, but maybe they were like, this is the place we can actually get something done and make some money for the next few months of this cycle.
Yeah.
They did not call me. Whoever they are. All right, hey, very Zcash, much sidelined on Zcash.
You missed out on Scott being involved. Come on, guys.
I'm not. Unfortunately, I'm not part of the Zcash cabal. I'm saying this sarcastically. It's very fortunately because there's an SEC, and I want nothing to do with any of it. But I'm just saying, it does feel very non-coincidental.
Yeah, it feels like coordinated marketing to me when you see this many people talking about it at the same time, which it works. It is effective, right?
Highly effective.
And that's scary when you're unsure. And there's so many investors who are they just buy what other people tell them to buy without actually knowing. And I'll bet you a lot of people buying Zcash, they're not looking into what you're talking about of are they actually building something? Is this something real? They're just, hey, other people are talking about it. Okay, I'm in. It's it's tough out there. Scott, pleasure to get you back on the show today. I hope when we get you back on this month that we got
a lot of fun, man. It is anytime. It's fun. I love if you can't laugh at yourself and kind of how nonsensical things have become, it's I admit it. Everything I say could be completely wrong, and I would not be surprised by any of it because.
Let me ask you this, and you can either take this serious or we can continue to make jokes because either way it's fun. I think a lot of our listeners are in a feeling of panic selling right now. I think there's this feeling of, we are still in a 4-year cycle. Prices are going down. We might have topped. What would be your advice to somebody who's sitting there thinking, pushing the sell button on things that they've held for a long time? They're not traders, they're investors.
Sell. Well, you have to know where you're going to put that money. So I think you can't just arbitrarily sell. And if you sell into cash, you're going to want to yield on that cash, and that those yields are going to come down. So I think you have to kind of just consider that. I would just say sell some. Markets isn't a binary decision. Sell 20%. It'll push back the larger decision a bit further. You'll feel like you did something, and you won't make a tragic error that you'll want to kill yourself over if markets double again. Nobody ever went broke taking profit, and everybody should be scaling in and out of positions. So I would say that there's a lot of people who go, I'm panicking and sell everything. That's probably never the right decision, right? Only to buy it back higher.
Well said. Scott, pleasure to get you back on the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Got to remind you, as always, none of today's episode is financial advice. Today's episode for educational and informational purposes only. We'll see you back again tomorrow. Have a wicked awesome day. Want insights on what's moving crypto markets and how we're trading each event? Subscribe to our channel and join the Milk Road Daily and Pro newsletters and start investing like the top 1%. This show is for educational purposes only. Nothing we say is financial advice. Investing is risky. Never invest more than you can afford to lose.